start by thanking everybody for the partnership on this. This is a big deal, and it was a big deal before COVID, and it's become a bigger deal in the face of COVID. I started out when I came into office wanting to expand and build on our early childhood program. I think we all understood that just from an academic and human perspective, that the expansion of early childhood education was absolutely essential for the well-being and success of our students in school. And that absent that, we would continue to struggle with some of the very same gaps that we've been dealing with for such a very long time here. And I don't have to talk with people, or explain to anybody what these gaps mean. So we've been committed for a long time to trying to move something forward. Our partners from the County Council and from MCPS and Montgomery College, they're here to support this release. And I really want to thank them for their critical work in this area. And I also want to thank particularly the Councilmember Navarro and Gabe Albornoz for their, real commitment and dedication to seeing this thing through. And I really want to thank all everybody who works directly with families and children across the county. I know that in the spring, many child care programs remained open for the care of essential workers, and many have reopened to support working parents. And the council and I have worked hard to make sure that we could provide support to people that would facilitate the reopening. This initiative had already convened as an interagency and community stakeholder working body since 2019. So they were able to pretty quickly respond to the unforeseen emergency of COVID-19 because they were already working in this field. And so it was good to be working on it. It was, COVID-19 came as a surprise and shock to everybody, but at least we had something in process that we were able to turn around. The council has worked hard to provide support along with, our folks. To people in the child care community. We've distributed personal protective equipment supplies to child development programs throughout the county. We've been deep cleaning our facilities that house child care centers. We provided $10 million in relief funds to assist with revenue losses, to support reopening expenses with the support of council. And that's a big deal because, people whose centers had to close down and were unable to make rent payments face the loss of the places where they did business. And if we had allowed them to lose their spaces, the crisis would even be deeper than it is today. Space for this is hard enough to find in a good situation. And it was important that we preserved it as best we could. We've developed and distributed a comprehensive guide for childcare to prevent the spread of COVID-19, relentlessly advocating for additional supports. We have, for example, the State Department of Education had lifted the waiver that the county and other counties enjoyed on childcare, allowing up to 14 students and one adult in a classroom. And they've gone back to insisting that there be one adult for every 10 children, which means 14 children would require 2 adults, but they've also lifted the capacity to allow for 20 kids in a classroom. Many of us don't feel that's safe. And so we've asked the governor, and we actually asked the head of the State Board of Education once and now a second time to grant us a waiver so that our childcare providers don't have to bring in 2 adults for 14 children, because they simply will not be able to operate that way. And the alternative is to put more children into a classroom that we really think is safe. So we're hoping that a second effort will, particularly in light of the governor's comments yesterday, will find a more sympathetic hearing in Annapolis. The first year of the EC initiative resulted in exceeding outcomes for expansion of childcare. We were able to recruit 59 new family childcare homes and 472 seats across the county, and we opened the Emery Grove Family Involvement Center and the preschool program there in partnership with MCPS. This multi-year action plan was developed by many agencies and stakeholders, and it's a blueprint for how we're going to be able to move our agenda forward, but also support the recovery efforts. It provides new and ongoing resources to sustain partnerships and increase availability of high quality early childhood education. It provides access and affordable options to families with children, infants through age 5, and expands WPA and other subsidy options, and explores additional partnerships with MCPS. Expands the supply and options for high quality early education programs in multiple settings. This is just so important. Like I said in the beginning, it was important to provide the children of Montgomery County better opportunities to be prepared when they enter school before COVID. It is just as important now, and when COVID's over, this problem is still going to be facing with. So having this 4-year action plan is really important. So to the staff of HHS, I want to thank you for your incredible efforts to support childcare in the community and for your invaluable advice that you afforded me as we responded to this. I want to thank our partners, the council members, the school system, the nonprofits, all who contributed to creating this action plan. And I look forward to its implementation and to working with everybody as we move forward. So with that, I'll say thank you very much.
I would turn this over to Councilmember Nancy Navarro.
Thank you so much. It is great to be here with County Executive Marc Elrich, President of our Montgomery College, Dr. DeRionne Pollard, Dr. Smith, the Superintendent of Montgomery County Public Schools, Dr. Crowel, Director of HHS, and also, of course, the Executive Steering Committee and all the other subcommittee members that include agency representatives, community partners, and leaders, all the stakeholders that really had a part in making this vision a reality. It gives me great pride to be a founding part of the vision and work that culminated in the county's early care and education action plan. When I first reached out to stakeholders about the need for a strategic early care and education initiative, the consensus was a resounding yes. I then reached out to the president of Montgomery College, Dr. Pollard, the superintendent of schools, Dr. Smith, then Board of Education President Pat O'Neill, and they were first in line to stand behind this vision. Our county executive, Marc Elrich, did not think twice about supporting this work and investing the necessary dollars. And my council colleagues immediately came together to support the proposal and the funding. This is what collaboration looks like. And I am grateful to all of you for modeling what is possible. Coming in the eve of the twin pandemics of COVID-19 and a renewed reckoning with systemic racism, the timing is perfect for a multi-year action plan that will significantly expand early care and education options for infant, toddlers, and preschoolers to provide greater access to more families and support schools and community-based providers. To date, we have added nearly $30 million to the Early Care and Education NDA, which includes CARES Act funding, as well as the initial $7 million investment. And I'm thrilled that the county executive is proposing additional dollars through FY24. High quality care and education programs that are affordable and accessible have been shown to be cost effective, have been shown to close education and opportunity gaps and increase socioeconomic benefits that can better entire communities. The United States has a growing aging population and a young population. This young population is socioeconomically, racially, and ethnically diverse and disproportionately affected by an opportunity gap that leads to an academic achievement gap. In order to maintain our competitive edge as a nation, increase our shared quality of life, and achieve racial equity and social justice, our communities and our workforce must be prepared to access the opportunities presented by a rapidly evolving global economy. This is why I continue to believe that this is the socioeconomic imperative of our time. I come at this as a young mother who a long time ago needed high quality care, but did not find any. So I quit my job and became a licensed family child care provider to care for my daughters and other children. And then when my daughter entered kindergarten, I founded a nonprofit organization, Centro Familia, to help immigrant women become licensed family child care providers, thus expanding the number of available slots in the county and promoting the creation of small businesses in immigrant communities. As a matter of fact, aspects of this blueprint are modeled after the Center for Familia's program design, which has yielded impressive results. Finally, I come at this as a legislator, first on the Board of Education and now on the County Council, where I have seen firsthand the urgent need for a comprehensive strategy. As you can see, I know very well the critical difference that quality early care and education can make for children and families, and that is why I felt the urgency to author this blueprint. Coming together as a team to set the course for this vision is by far the most important and valuable investment we can make in our communities. I applaud everyone's efforts in making this initiative a reality. I applaud those family childcare providers and those providers and centers, the owners, the operators, who even through this very difficult time are doing everything possible to remain in place in order to serve our children and families, as we will undoubtedly get over this terrible crisis. I look forward to continuing to work with our county executive and my colleagues to do everything possible to provide the necessary relief so that when we are done with this crisis, all of these slots are set and ready to receive our amazing children. Please be safe during these holidays and the rest of the winter time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Navarro. Appreciate the comments and remarks. I'm going to keep us moving and turn this directly over to Dr. DeRionne Pollard, President of Montgomery College. Dr. Pollard.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Crowel. It's always an honor to be amongst these colleagues, and certainly to Councilmember Marc Elrich, to Councilmember Nancy Navarro, who picked up the phone and called us early on this. We're delighted to be so. And certainly to my partner in crime, Dr. Jack Smith, all the time. Thank you for letting me offer a couple of comments here today. First, I want to say congratulations to the Early Childhood Education Initiative and its subcommittees for the incredible work that they've done in the first year. I recognize that our current conditions have made your work even more difficult, but you have obviously persisted because of talent and also because there's tremendous work to be done. So let me congratulate you on an amazing report. I suspect that when this report was being planned, the authors had little idea of the challenges that we'd be facing this year, or how we would have to bring relief to the true value of high quality, affordable early childhood education. First responders and healthcare workers still have to work during the pandemic, and their children have to be cared for during this time. That's a reality that many have to face and has strained families to the brink. People who are able to work from home but who have young children with them right now are seriously impacted by our current circumstances. Some of them are actually unable to work from home with young children there. Even those of us with older children, and I have an 8th grader who needs guidance and is liable to come in here in a moment and ask me where the cereal can be found. Some suddenly realize how essential K-12 schools are to the strength of our workforce. If I didn't have my wife at home as well, I certainly would not be present for my job in the way that I need to be. If we had younger children at home, this would be a game changer for our family. And that's where early education comes in. If it wasn't clear before, we know it now. Early childhood education is pivotal to the health of our economy, and the recovery economy will depend even more so on this. Parents will need to rely on educational options that they trust have adequate infection control and follow health protocols carefully. They may also need more flexible hours as they work the schedules that are available to them. They also want to know that education that their child is receiving will prepare them for the next level of schooling. That is essential to the strength of our entire county. 20 years from now, employers are not going to ask folks if they were in school during the pandemic. They're going to need our young people to be prepared to work. And that's why the foundation that ECE provides are so critical. So at Montgomery College, the pandemic has slowed many things down, but it has not stopped our core function, and that's education. The Pathway Scholarship for ECE students has allowed students to sustain their educational pathways through the pandemic, supporting an increased enrollment and accelerating student completion. Many of those students could have been thrown off course by the pandemic's financial constraints, but we're grateful for that funding. In fact, some of them were able to step up as essential providers during the pandemic. The college's credit for prior learning program allows some childcare providers to gain college credit for their experience, which accelerates their progress through our academic programs, moving them out into the market sooner. This helps shore up the numbers of providers that are ready to work. The college's collaboration between the early childhood education programs and the workforce development and continuing education area has created a synergy that moves students onto the right path. These advances are helping professional development, they help parents in need, and it strengthens our workforce. We all know the data on early childhood education. It forms the building blocks for future educational and eventual professional success. That's why at Montgomery College, we take the preparation of ECE providers so seriously. They are literally the connectors of our preparation pipeline. They also allow the rest of the economy to grow because parents are able to concentrate on their careers while experts care for and teach their children. I suspect this report makes the case for more consistent investments in ECE and for more collaboration among stakeholders, business, nonprofits, and educators. And we all have roles to play, for this report lays it out clearly. The pandemic has helped to highlight some of the needs that are already existing, but are now even more critical. Let's take advantage of the opportunity being created by this crisis and move ahead ambitiously with our shared priorities. I hope this report will provide some new evidence for why early childhood education matters so much and some renewed pathways for its growth and development. So grateful and delighted to be here with these allies and look forward to learning and growing with us as we respond to this evolving nature that we're in. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Pollard. Lastly, we'll turn to Dr. Jack Smith, Superintendent for Montgomery County Public Schools. Dr. Smith, welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Crowel. Pleasure to be here, and thank you for all you're doing on behalf of our community and your partnership with the school system in this health crisis. I am truly excited to be here today. The release of the Early Care and Education 4-Year Action Plan is a great day in Montgomery County. The work around this has been critical, and I just want to express my appreciation to the county executive, Mr. Elrich, to Councilmember Navarro, Councilmember Albernaz, and all of the council members for their support. We've actually been able to add, thanks to county support, the Kerwin funding, and state support, more pre-kindergarten seats every year for the last 4 years. And that's something we have to continue to do because this is among the most essential work in this community. It's absolutely critical. The school board has been incredibly supportive of this, and they are as anxious and feel as urgent about this as the people on this screen today. And so it truly is, as Dr. Pollard said, a set of allies working together on behalf of our youngest residents. And we must continue this work. One of the highlights for MCPS was the opening last year of the Up County Early Childhood Center at Emory Grove. That center added to our services across the county and provides opportunities for our youngest learners, 85 of them, regular education students who receive regular education and special education in an inclusive environment, and is paired with other services in that building. We also have the McDonald Knowles services, and we provide that, as well as hundreds and hundreds of classrooms across the county that are serving children every day. And while we've made good progress, we must continue to move forward, and this action plan is going to help us do that and help us continue to build and add and grow. The programs right now, many of them are virtual or partially virtual, and no matter how they evolve or what happens in the future, they are critical to a young child's future success. They build foundational skills in how children enter structured learning environments, in how children build relationships outside of their own family, and in how children learn to navigate and negotiate the world around them. And it's a safe, appropriate way for children to be introduced to that. It's critically important also for families as they work with schools to build those strong relationships early on with the school programs and understand how to support children all the way through. Right now, students in Montgomery County can complete their high school program with tremendous numbers of international baccalaureate or advanced placement credits. They can complete, and we have a very large growing number, an Associate of Arts degree at Montgomery College right now as they graduate from high school. They can get licensures and certifications in many, many areas and continue on at Montgomery College. They can stay here and go pre-K through master's degree programs and beyond right here in Montgomery County. In order to do those things, they must have that early foundation. And that's what this is about. It's why it's so important. And it's why we are all in on early learning and supporting the care, because the care of children is integral to their learning and how we do that. And so it's really a pleasure to be here today. It's a pleasure to work with a group of people in front of me, as well as many, many others across HHS, the nonprofits, the care providers, and the nonprofits that provide early learning. So thank you, everyone. Really good day, I think, for Montgomery County as we continue forward to provide these services to every single child in the county. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank all of you for taking a moment to share with us your thoughts and your continued commitment to making early child care a stronger reality in Montgomery County. You speak to a lot of the truths of what it has taken to make this work, and talk about where the future will take us if we stay the course. And I say if, I should not say if, I should say as we stay the course. Before I move on, I want to acknowledge that Councilmember Gabe Albornoz is with us today. He's the chair of HHS committee and has been a constant champion of early child care, along with Councilmember Navarro and the other members of the panel today. So thank you, Councilmember, for your presence, for joining us. I want to turn now and introduce the steering committee co-chairs, Caroline Sturgis, Assistant County Administrative Officer, and Joanne Barnes, Chief of Children, Youth, and Families, who have been at this work since day one. Of course, Ms. Barnes has been with us for a long time, working on this issue of early child care, and has been deeply committed to this process. So I want to turn it over to you, Joanne, to give us a sense of what lies ahead in the plan.
Thank you very much. I want to take just a minute to share with you what our report looks like. I wanted to take just a few minutes to tell you a little bit about what you will find in this report, and hope that you will take advantage of the press release that comes out with the report and take a full look at it. As one of the co-chairs of this event, first I'd like to thank the 4 leaders that have already spoken and expressed my appreciation to each of you for your attention to this topic of early care and education. And it really has made a difference. In this first year, which actually ended June of 2020, the report being delayed, as you might expect, because our focus had changed to responding to the pandemic. But in that first year of the work, we were able to achieve so much in 1 year with the support of each of you and Dr. Crowel. And I'm just really grateful on behalf of the steering committee to be able to produce this report and show you not only what we are planning to do, but some of what we have already done in the first year. We really did get off to a great start. We had to create relationships that we needed to do the work. And those relationships were both within the public sector, across the county executive branch, as well as with MCPS, with the college, and with county council. But even within the executive branch, there was work we had to do to bring all of the right players to the table in that first year. It wasn't just HHS that's involved in making this a success. It's the Department of Permitting Services. It's Montgomery County Libraries. It's Montgomery County Department of Recreation. It's the community use of public facilities. All of these agencies have a role in making sure that early care and education can thrive in our community. So I do want to take a moment and acknowledge the very first steps we put in place was to pull all the right parties around the table and make sure that we could make things happen. And I believe we did make things happen. We were able to meet with the community. We had our first annual forum with the community, looking at recommendations that had been pulled together by county agencies and other public stakeholders, public and private stakeholders. And then we took those recommendations out to the community and got input from those community members. And that helped inform the direction that you will see in our recommendations for years 2 through 4. We knew that we needed to adjust. We were just ready to publish our plan when the pandemic started. And fortunately, we were able to adjust. We were able to move quickly from the planning phase to look at the needs of our providers, to reach out to them in weekly listening sessions and find out what was troubling them even in the early stages. And those opportunities to meet with providers continue thanks to our Child Care Resource and Referral Center. And we've been able to adjust to the changing landscape. The county executive mentioned some of the initiatives that we've put in place as a result of the pandemic. And those decisions were made with input from our providers. So let me tell you briefly what you'll see when you look in the report. We've divided our report into certain sections for the action plan for years 2 through 4. We continue to look at sustainability, access and affordability, alignment, and expansion. When you look at our sustainability page, you will see a list of what we plan to do by year. In year 2, for example, we are going to focus some of our efforts on the development of shared services hub models that would benefit our child care providers. Many of our providers are small businesses and they need support. They don't have the infrastructure that the larger organizations may have. And while this may not be desirable to a large multi-site child care business, for some of the smaller businesses, including family child care, a shared services hub model can have many benefits for them. And over the next year, we're going to be looking at how we can support those small businesses with purchasing of PPE, with marketing to make sure that families know where they are and families know when they have vacancies and can take advantage of that information. We're hoping to look at building a local system that is much more nimble than the locate model that's sponsored by the state, that will truly meet the need of our families and providers in Montgomery County. Under access and affordability, I just want to highlight one item that you'll find in the report action plan, and that is our continued work to review the Working Parents Assistance Program and look at the need and the usage and consider where we are in these times. Is it time to make some changes to that program? So that's going to be a focus as we continue through year 2 and into the future years of the plan. We know that child care subsidies are influenced by the type of care a family uses, the income that a family earns, and the cost of care. And while we know that we're in a time where we're experiencing many changes to the child care field, we want to make sure that we don't lose the ground that we've already gained with the improvements that we've made to the Working Parents Assistance Program. We want to make sure that we continue to move our rates closer to the cost of care. And we want to make sure that we continue to monitor what families are experiencing even as their income moves up the scale. Typically, we're measuring with the federal poverty level scale, and right now we're serving families up to 350% of the federal poverty level. But that's something that we will continue to work on as part of our action plan. Under alignment, I want to highlight a couple of things that we want to continue our focus on. In higher education, we want to make sure that the early care and education professionals and those that want to be in the field of early care and education can take advantage of the strong pipeline that already exists in Montgomery County between Montgomery County Public Schools, Montgomery College, and USG. We want to make sure that there is continues to be a strong program, and that people know about that program. If you want to be a professional in the field of early care and education, that goal can start when you're in MCPS, when you're in high school. So we want to continue to work this year on developing strong relationships, collaborations, and marketing that so that young children who are in high school who desire to go into this field know the pathway, and they can plan for a seamless transition from high school into the field. Under the area of expansion, you'll find one of our action plan items is to continue to look at startup and facility costs code issues that have posed barriers for childcare expansion. In our first year, we exceeded our goal of having new family childcare providers added to our available list of providers. But we want to make sure as those providers try to open their facilities, open their family childcare as well as centers, that we can help them with startup, and we can help them address some of the facility issues that go into licensing their space. So that is something that we will continue to do. We've created great partnerships with the Department of Permitting Services that we believe will serve our childcare providers well. And that's just a highlight of what's in the report. I really want to encourage you to go through the entire report, look at the recommendations as they span over years 2 through 4, but pay a particular attention to what we plan to continue to do this year, even while we continue to address the recovery efforts for our childcare providers. We know that that work is going to continue. The impact of the pandemic has long-lasting effects on this industry, and so we know that our recovery work will continue. But we've got a great group of professionals, a great group of public and private partners, and membership from our community providers who are all willing to give us strong input into what we need to do to continue down that road of recovery. And this steering committee plays a major role in making sure that gets done. I want to just thank each of you for being here with us today. I'm so excited about being able to share this action plan. And again, I want to express my thanks to the county executive, to County Council Member Nancy Navarro, to Drs. Smith and Dr. Pollard for your continued support. I know that there are many other members of the Early Care and Education Steering Committee on this press event, and so I want to also take this opportunity to thank all of you, and I'm looking forward to another year of long-lasting work. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joanne. Very much appreciate you. You're walking us through that, and I want to encourage people once again, as you did, to take the time to dive into the report and study the richness of what's been done and what the proposed plan is for the future. I would say that the accomplishments of this first year have been amazing, but the reality is that partnership, commitment, and hard work have bred the success of the first year, and I think will ensure the future of this initiative. The group has demonstrated they were all in, as Dr. Smith said. I want to once again acknowledge the steadfast support of the champions you've heard from today, but I'd also be remiss if I did not recognize Councilmember Greg Rice, Chair of the Education and Cultural Committee, and indeed all the many members of the County Council for their support of this initiative over the year. Beyond that, in the face of all the adversity, the true heroes in this story are the providers that can continue to work and serve our families and who are ready to step back in and serve our families in the face of COVID-19. We play a supporting role for their efforts and for their work. So I want to thank you. As a psychologist, I know that what you do lays the groundwork, lays cognitive and emotional foundations for the well-being of our children and for their success in education and life. Thank you to the members of the steering committee, council, the committee, council, and county executive again. And my thanks to the staff of Health and Human Services, who I know have put an enormous amount of time and energy and poured their hearts into this work. So thank you all.
Dr. Smith, you've reported, obviously MCPS's enrollment is down a good bit this year, largely in pre-K. So I'm curious, knowing the research-based benefits of pre-K, and how concerned are you that COVID will affect the progress that you all are making toward getting more kids enrolled, or that delaying or foregoing pre-K will affect these students' achievement throughout their academic careers, particularly for these Black and Hispanic students who have already historically had a harder time obtaining access to these programs?
We're extremely concerned about that all the time, every day, for every child. And while we know the last 8 months have been very difficult, we understand that we have to continue to find ways to provide service no matter what the conditions or the circumstances are. And we need to continue to build out the opportunity for every child to engage in early learning in this community. It's absolutely essential. And then we need to have a long-term plan about how we're going to deal with this significant disruption, not only for early learners, but for everyone engaged in educational programs from early learning all the way through University of Shady Grove and Montgomery College, all of those things. And so we'll all continue to work together to do that and make sure that, that while the disruption is difficult and challenging and painful, that it does not have a long-lasting effect on our residents and on our future as our children grow up.
Can I just also answer that? So the county council, along with county executive, we have approved a number of special appropriations to provide some relief and help our childcare providers. Those special appropriations have had language specifically to address, for example, family childcare providers and those who serve, as you mentioned, Black and Brown children, because of this real concern. It's not just the fact that there's an issue, of course, of safety, but also the issue of learning, and that is so important. I think that your question is a really good one also, and it aligns with some of our initiatives, such as the COVID-19 Latino Initiative por Nuestra Salud y Bienestar, as well as our African American Health Program. I think that there are some connections there for us as we build those initiatives to also begin to reach out and ensure that we're able, as much as possible within the parameters of this COVID-19 crisis and the restrictions, to make sure the families understand that it is going to be imperative for those pre-K students to continue to learn and to continue to develop all of these different types of skills, so that when school does reopen and children are back, they haven't fallen behind. So this is something that we are very concerned about, as Dr. Smith just mentioned, and hope to leverage what we are doing right now in the crisis mode to then provide that support to those families. Thank you.
Nancy, al inicio de cuando comenzó todo este programa, la implementación hace un poco más de un año, y durante el inicio ustedes le hicieron la invitación a familias del condado de Montgomery a tomar ventaja de esta iniciativa, proveyendo esos servicios en sus hogares. Sabemos que la situación por el coronavirus no es la mejor y esto es obviamente un impedimento, pero cuando la situación mejore en un futuro pronto, ¿podrían las familias latinas del condado de Montgomery proceder a la inscripción y participar de esta iniciativa?
Definitivamente, mira, en este grupo hay personas que están trabajando ya directamente con la comunidad. Por ejemplo, Jennifer Anais, que es la directora del Centro de Referencia y Recursos del Condado en el área de cuidado infantil. Ellos han estado trabajando mucho, sobre todo con aquellas proveedoras de cuidado infantil en el hogar. Muchas son latinas. También centros que están expandiendo el número de cupos para asegurarse de que esta comunidad tome provecho de esta situación, porque sabemos que los niños latinos, también con nuestros niños afroamericanos, son aquellos los que cuando entran a kindergarten ya están un poco atrasados. Entonces, esta iniciativa va a tener un impacto súper positivo en la preparación para el kindergarten. Y sí, una vez que terminemos de pasar por esta crisis, en parte es una situación bastante beneficiosa, porque entonces ya los grupos van a estar listos y así los niños y las familias pueden tomar provecho.
Muchísimas gracias. Y si puedo hacer una pregunta para Vivi. Vivi.
Sí.
Usted ha trabajado de mano a mano con el ejecutivo del condado de Montgomery. Cuéntenos cómo ha sido esta experiencia y cómo se han visto beneficiadas las familias latinas.
Bueno, yo creo que en lo que se dijo anteriormente, que dado al hecho de que ya teníamos el Steering Committee, ya habíamos estado trabajando en términos de todos los diferentes departamentos del condado, fue relativamente fácil poder coordinar los servicios durante la pandemia, y eso ha sido bien importante en este momento que tuvimos la oportunidad de repartir un poco de fondos a varios centros de cuidado de niños y de proveer información y de proveer recursos necesarios para ellos. Entonces, en ese sentido ha sido un paso positivo en una situación de emergencia bastante negativa. Eso incluye a todos, por supuesto, a todas las organizaciones y los centros familiares que están proveyendo cuidado a los niños. Lo otro es que los centros de cuidado tuvieron la oportunidad o se acoplaron a la emergencia en términos de proveer servicios para el personal esencial. Y sabemos que muchos de nuestras familias trabajan fuera de la casa y son personal esencial. Y ellos tuvieron acceso al cuidado de sus niños en los varios, en el momento de los primeros 3 o 4 meses, cuando ese era el único cuidado al niño que existía. Y quiero reforzar de que no hemos dejado de tener comunicación continua con todos los centros de cuidado infantil, específicamente con aquellos que sirven a la comunidad latina. Yo personalmente he tenido sesiones en español y en inglés con directores de programas y con las dueñas de programas infantiles en su casa para proveerles información y mantenerlos al día con qué es lo que está sucediendo en la pandemia. Así que creo que hemos podido continuamente estar en contacto y darles todo el apoyo necesario en un momento sumamente difícil, y vamos a seguir. Este plan realmente demuestra cómo vamos a seguir dando ese apoyo, porque esta es una industria que va a necesitar mucho apoyo para poder recuperarse de lo que ha sido esta pandemia.
¿Puedo hacerle una última pregunta? Usted mencionó algo muy importante, que son los trabajadores esenciales. Eso, para todas las familias que nos están viendo, sabemos que los latinos, muchos de ellos, están en la primera línea de la pandemia. ¿Dónde ellos pueden solicitar o encontrar más información sobre los centros de cuidado para sus hijos?
Bueno, si van a la página web del condado, hay una solicitud para aquellas personas que tienen niños de 5 a 13 años de edad. Hay la oportunidad de que puedan solicitar ayuda financiera para poner a sus niños en un programa de apoyo durante el día para que continúen con sus estudios académicos, pero que también los padres puedan ir a trabajar. Entonces, el programa de School Age, hay una solicitud corta y los padres pueden solicitar para ese apoyo, y los programas están en las escuelas, en varias escuelas, y ahí están listadas las escuelas. Ese yo creo que para los padres de familia que tienen niños de edad escolar, es parte del programa de cuidado de niños.
Excelente, muchísimas gracias.
También un momento, Marcela, también los padres que están interesados siempre pueden llamar obviamente al 311, donde se le da información en español, pero obviamente también pueden llamar a nuestras oficinas. El número de mi oficina es 240-777-7968 para cualquier tipo de orientación que necesiten.
Just one more for me. I guess according to the Maryland State Department of Ed, the percentage of Montgomery County kindergartners demonstrating readiness for kindergarten remained about the same, actually down about 1 percentage point between the 2018-19 and 2019-20 school year, now at about 53%. That's above the state average, as you know, but can you just talk about that data and what it says to you in terms of how it relates to this work that we're talking about today?
Well, we know that when children experience pre-kindergarten opportunities, that they are more likely to build the structures in their brains and the building blocks of learning that are so essential as they develop, for example, the relationship between sounds and symbols, between the sounds of the alphabet and the symbols that are represented, and then they move much more smoothly into that early literacy. And so that's one example. Another is some very good research that's come out in the last 5 years, looks at numeracy and the ability of young children when exposed to mathematical concepts. They can grasp those concepts far better than people have long believed if they're given those structured opportunities. And so that is a tremendous opportunity that we can create and provide for every child in Montgomery County as we build out these early learning activities. And then, as I said before, the early care is essential at the same time, because the care of the child precedes the opportunity to learn. If, in other words, if you are having a physical, social, or psychologically difficult circumstance, your learning is inhibited. And so the care is critical, and that provides the foundation to the early learning. The early learning provides the foundation to everything else in life.
I like to add that, if you look at that data, and this is something that we've done for years, it also tracks with poverty. When you look at farms rates and you look at this data, the information around a child's socioeconomic status and their access to quality early care and education is pretty startling. This is why this initiative is so important, because we want to level the playing field for all children. When you look at our ESOL, for example, data, you also see that something like 65+% of those children in ESOL are U.S. citizens, and so you start realizing that there is a narrative here of how many of those children who perhaps are also low income don't have access to high quality care and education, because that is where you start developing, for example, your language skills in general. And so there's just so much that early care and education is able to do in a way that is also connected to equity, because if we are able to provide access to every child, regardless of their socioeconomic status, then once they enter kindergarten, they are able to just be ready and to continue to develop in ways that then provides those access to all of those opportunities. And so that's where it begins. And that's why, to me, I've always been a proponent of the fact that this is the most important place for our investment, because that's where you're going to get your best return on investment. This is why this is so critical, and why I'm so excited that it wasn't just a one-year thing, that it's something that continues and that we continue to invest so that we can scale up as much as possible.
So I'd like to jump in and add something on here too. I think most of you know I was a former school teacher, and I taught elementary school in Montgomery County. And when I came onto the council, one of the things I brought with me and I shared with my staff was, it's one of the studies out of Harvard that talked about the return on investment in children. And I'm not normally a return on investment person, because I think that can be manipulated in the wrong ways, but it really talked about what happened with money spent in the early years, the preschool years, versus money spent, frankly, at the age of 8. And that interventions that happen earlier and are more complete result in far more progress in children than interventions that happen later. And so I always felt like we have to continue to intervene wherever intervention is necessary. but it was really clear that, you know, focusing on the early years was the place where the money was going to produce the best results, that the way the brain develops and all this other scientific stuff, research that was being done when I was teaching, showed that this isn't just, you know, kids aren't just blank slates that you write on when they come into a classroom, but their brain actually develops differently and is differently accessible to information at different points in their lives. And so what you put in place early has profound impacts on how those brains operate when the kids get older. So I'm a big believer in this. It's not just the moral imperative, the logical imperative. It's actually a scientific imperative to act and act early.
Thank you, everybody. Stay safe.